Now, point one, the memory of my contact events were stored in the timelessness states of the higher self, not in the mind. To provide some clarity on this confusing and hard to understand idea, I've made some graphics which demonstrate a couple of different perspectives. This diagram illustrates a simple analogy of our different memories in terms of vibration. The bottom line, which represents our conditioning and the different types of daily memory we are used to, such as short and long term, episodic, procedural, and also includes our conditioning. It could be argued that this part of us is immersed within the simulation and focuses on and believes in the reality of the three-dimensional world. Then the midline, which represents the ethereal you, the ghost you, which contains the subconscious imprints of your present existence and carries the memory of your past lives. In this context, we could call it mid-level memory. Then the top line, which represents the highest vibration of you, your oversoul. This is the you that knows the purpose of your manifestation in this reality and plans out all your lives. Its existence is outside space-time. For this context, we could call it a higher order memory. Now, from my own experience, the aliens use their craft to create a pocket of timelessness. This pocket bypasses the brain and ethereal mind, reaching the higher order memory, the source of our awareness. Since the focus of our awareness is you or an individual in this dimension, what gets created is a copy of you, an imprint of you from the ethereal self, with all your memories of who you are. Now, here's the crazy part. In some contact events, technically, it's not you. It's a copy of you. But the energy to create your awareness is directly generated from your oversoul. That sounds complex, but I know for a fact this is how it's done. The reason this idea is confusing is because humans are trapped in the illusion that the physical 3D world is real and that everything is processed solely by the brain. So here is another perspective. The ghost you, housed within your body, then encounters the entity's craft, which creates a distortion of space-time that pierces through the 3D simulation surrounding us, including the part of your awareness holding onto it. The light body within you is the direct portion of you from the oversoul. Its degree in each of us varies depending on our evolution. The non-human intelligence craft splices into the simulation, bending space-time, and penetrates right to your oversoul, the part of you that's actually generating your awareness. For some contact events, this is definitely what is happening. John Mack had some fascinating points about memory and alien contact that I believe lend support to my understanding that memories of non-human intelligence contact reside in the oversoul, our higher order memory. I believe the often fragmented or dreamlike nature of them is a natural consequence of the human mind transitioning between dimensional fields. Finally, there are phenomena and experiences reported by abductees for which we can conceive of no explanation within a Newtonian, Cartesian, or even Einsteinian spacetime ontology. Abductees sense that their experiences are not occurring in our spacetime universe, or that space and time have collapsed. John Mack, Abductions, page 33. In Eva's descriptions, she repeatedly describes the access she gains during her abductions to another dimension, or other dimensions, of existence, an expanded reality in which human concepts of space and time do not apply, of expanding to infinity and contracting to a single point at the same time. John Mack, Abductions, page 261. A young woman abductee I call Anne tried to explain to me during a regression her sense of converging timeframes that occurs in her abductions. Anne felt as if she were functioning simultaneously in different times. All times can come to one place, she said. John Mack, Abductions, page 405. Although it is not uncommon for an experiencer to recall a single major encounter, it is interesting that Ed's occurred when he was a teenager and was not recalled for nearly 30 years. The forces involved in the implanting, storage, and recovery of information remain among the most central mysteries of the whole abduction phenomenon. We also do not understand completely why it should suddenly happen that many of the memories of the earlier experience returned. Yet it does appear that as a mature man, he is in a better position to apply his knowledge in some sort of earthly calling, integrating the abduction related information with his psychological gifts and professional expertise. John Mack, Abductions, page 65 to 66. Mack marvels at the implanting, storage, and recovery of memories, which perplex him from his normal work as a psychiatrist. For me, the memory's bizarre nature is the product of them being stored within the higher order memory of the self, within the oversoul. And the triggers for the memories 30 years later also perplexed Mac. And for me, again, the oversoul is involved with the timing of their release. And then their after effects of contact can be explained by the interaction with the individual's own oversoul, or higher order memory, against their own mind. From reports of relentlessly passing out to bizarre emotional outbursts. A contactee experiences a depth of themselves in contact, and depending on the openness of their mind to that state, their mind may react by shutting down, such as when Villay reports in his book Dimensions with a military man who had contact and then kept passing out for several days afterwards. I'm familiar with this, with newcomers to a satsang of my gurus, with his words penetrating to people's souls. It was not uncommon for them to pass out in satsang. And from personal experience, the more dense one's mind is in the moment, the more likely they are to pass out. Point three, the entity's alternate frequency acted as a barrier or a gatekeeper for the memories stored in the oversoul. So, this here is evidence that there is an alternate electromagnetic frequency associated with non human intelligence contact. I desire to have that full memory. Counting down, and once I reach the bottom of these stairs, I will have access to this full night and this full memory. 9, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a dark, cold night. Cool. This event occurred only once, but I've heard of similar effects from other experiencers. For me, this occurs because we are opening the frequency of their realm embedded in our consciousness from repeated contact. The alternate electromagnetic frequency causes the electronics in the vicinity to malfunction. And there are some lines from Mac that support the idea that non human intelligence contact is occurring in an alternate dimension. Quite a few abductees have spoken to me of their sense that at least some of their experiences are not occurring within the physical space time dimensions of the universe as we comprehend it. They speak of aliens breaking through from another dimension, through a slit or crack in some sort of barrier, entering our world from beyond the veil. They experience the aliens, indeed their abductions themselves, as happening in another reality, although one that is as powerfully actual to them as, or more so than, the familiar physical world. John Mack Abductions, page 404. Are the UFOs windows rather than objects? Jacques Vallée, Dimensions, page 143. The bifurcation was amplified by the embedded dual identity, as has occurred in the case of several abductees with whom I have been working recently. Scott's full acknowledgement of the reality of the alien presence has led him to the realization that he has always had a kind of dual identity and is capable of experiencing himself as both human and alien. The alien perspective, which apparently has always been embedded in his consciousness, was not available to him until he surrendered the illusion of control. John Mack Abductions, page 108. This is very interesting because this is the case for myself. As I witnessed in the first contact event, the elder is embedded in my consciousness. The only word I have for this dual identity is a spirit twin, which is what the elder called herself in 2019, my dolphin twin, which I knew at the time dolphin meant spirit. This link with the elder definitely plays a role in her ability to obscure my memories. The eighth contact event is an example of this, which I'll go into in the next video. My own higher self was a subconscious force in me desiring the preservation of the continuous flow of my reality. The abduction phenomenon also raises interesting questions about the nature of memory and the control of consciousness. As discussed in Chapter 1, prevalence or incident polls of UFO abductions are rendered almost meaningless by the fact that long forgotten abduction memories may be triggered by an event. Ed's walk along the coast in Maine, or Arthur's conversation with his sister at a family reunion, the timing of which is itself unpredictable. What are the forces that keep the memory out of consciousness during the years? More than 25 in these two cases, during which there is seemingly no recall of the events in question. The abductees themselves feel that something more than simple repression is at work, that some repressing force is imposed by the alien beings themselves. Ed, as I reported, remembers being told that he will remember when you need to know. Sometimes this not remembering appears to protect the abductees from a distress that they could not handle, especially in the case of children. But we have little understanding of how this repressing force works, or, for that matter, why an altered state of consciousness, facilitated in a caring, protective setting, is so effective in recovering abduction memories. John Mack Abductions, page 401 to 402. All I can say is for myself, my own oversoul played a role in the containment of the memories and the eventual timing of their release. Now, here are some additional points I found research for that I wanted to share. Contact with some entities may require an intermediary state between us and the original dimension of the entities. Among my research is Alec Newell's book Coevolution, 1997, the true story of a man taken for 10 days to an extraterrestrial civilization. This is because his entities described being from a dimension that was essentially similar to what I was shown by my entities, a planet linked to our own in the future, in another parallel dimension, even hinted to be in the shadow of Earth. Much of the information matched my own experience, while some descriptions provided to him are confusing, which for me is the classic phenomenon. My belief is coevolution does provide an important piece of the puzzle. Newell was told by the entities, our vibrational plane is a little higher than yours. There is really not that much difference. Soon there should be none, as we attempt to change our base vibration. Perhaps you could compare it to air and water on your planet. If, for example, you were the water and we were the air, by heating the water, you can produce steam or water vapor. This gaseous substance can then mix with the air about it, on more or less an even basis, as you are now doing with us. Some people on your planet may even be able to perceive us in our original form, but we are now of much denser substance than we used to be, although we would still most likely appear as wisps of smoke or as ghosts. When we first brought you here, we had to modify you to make you a little more like us. What you are now is a possible future you. Do you understand so far? Coevolution, page 48. So the elder told me this, which I mentioned in the video on the Cosmic Convergence channel. From telepathy during a UAP sighting, the elder informed me that she can't be in her physical form in my dimension. Doing so would damage her body. This is interesting because she'll be in my environment in some contact events when she emerges from craft. So then it speaks to the dimensional state she is in, as well as myself during that event. Just a heads up, I now know the eighth contact event is in time, but we are both astral projections, which I'll get into. And the ninth and 16th contact events, in which the elder does emerge from the craft, are both outside time. Very interesting. So, this information she gave me in telepathy during a UAP sighting, that she can't be in my dimension without damaging her body, matches my experience when we can understand the dimensional states we are both in during a contact event, showing us these are what looks like intermediary states, allowing us both to interact. Interestingly, I'm certain some of their kind can be in our dimension freely, like the small one in my second contact event. Non-human intelligence environments are inherently non-dual. Non-duality is a word that describes an experience of the unified field. I emphasize that when a human mind is unaccustomed to this experience, we don't perceive it. The illusion of separation creates a conditioned perspective in the human mind that retains itself even in a non-dual environment. However, we may catch glimpses of it, momentary experiences of extension. In brief moments, the mind, letting its guard down, may glimpse and expand itself. But then our human ego or mind simply snaps back into our frame of reference. To use a metaphor, our consciousness is like the ocean, and we are individuals as a bubble within it, with ocean water both inside and surrounding us. Despite having this ocean water within and around us, we take on the identity of the bubble. Our conditioned mind, identifying as the bubble, makes us perceive all other objects in the ocean, such as waves, currents, changes in sediment, or saline, as separate from the ocean itself. However, everything we observe is the ocean, including ourselves. Therefore, a change of identity can occur when we recognize that we are the ocean rather than the illusion of an individuated bubble. So I observe entities immersed in the identity of a non dual reality on non human intelligence craft through my own experience and the reports of others. That's why feelings and thoughts are easily transmitted on craft because they are non dual environments. Logically, you'd have to be a non dual species if you're living in a telepathic environment because you could feel other people's pain. You would not want your comrades to be in pain or to have disturbing thoughts. I'm certain fear and pain are one of the reasons the entities can't engage with us. As mentioned by a contactee in John Mack's book, that fear obstructs communication with the entities. This tells us that they themselves don't live in fear, which is indicative of a non dual species. The entities use pronouns like we and us. For example, the elder says, "Come with us to our ship," even though I'm only interacting with her. John Mack, in his book Abductions, explicitly noticed that the entities repeatedly use we and us pronouns. This suggests a non dual species. With non human intelligence environments inherently non dual, sometimes I see reports of contactees on craft of what I recognize as a human mind which has a dual perception, glimpsing non duality in the presence of the entities and then snapping back. For example, my last question had to do with his reluctance to look into the eyes of the aliens. He replied that when he was experiencing the alien perspective, he felt he was viewing reality through their eyes. But as a human, I was scared to because I'd be looking at myself. John Mack Abductions, page 106. David Huggins, in the documentary Love and Saucers, also shares this experience. As a young teenager, he had an early contact event on his childhood farm. When he locked eyes with the entity, the first thing that happened was he saw himself through the alien's eyes, which terrified him. This is a non dual experience. If the alien beings are closer to the divine source, or anima mundi, than human beings generally seem to be, then it is possible that their presence among us, however cruel and traumatic in some instances, may be part of a larger process that is bringing us back to God, or whatever we choose to call the creative principle. John Mack, Abductions, page 199. During non human intelligence contact, while consciousness is altered in a dimensional state, the physical body may be in stasis. I mentioned this in the previous video on memory obfuscation, but I was surprised to find some peripheral evidence for it. With Ed in the pod was a small, slight female figure with long, straight, thin, silvery blonde hair. Although Ed could recall no specific earlier abduction experiences, the figure had familiar aspects to her. I had this uncomfortable feeling that every time she looked at me, she could just see right into me. He found her attractively unusual and felt a little self conscious. The figure, perhaps sensing this, gave me some sort of blanket or big towel or something. She seemed to sense his thoughts without his saying anything, reassuring Ed. Ed was sexually excited, and the female being sensed my horniness. Although he was hazy as to how this came about, Ed said we had intercourse. According to Ed, this act was similar to human sexual intercourse with fondling of breasts, insertion of the penis in the vagina, and active participation by both individuals. Interestingly, although Ed was a virgin at this time, he did not recall this experience and still felt himself to be a virgin when he had sexual intercourse sometime later. John Mack, Abductions, page 52 to 53. So that struck me as familiar. You would think someone having sexual intercourse for what they thought was the first time would have flashbacks of the actual event when they lost their virginity. However, I point out that contact events can induce altered states of consciousness, putting the body in stasis. This means there's no traditional cellular memory of an event, including biological events, meaning Ed is not triggered by his loss of virginity to an alien during his first believed normal sexual encounter. This is precisely what I know about my own biological events. Several of them, not all, occur while my physical body is in stasis, allowing me to function without the normal cellular memory of an invasive procedure. Mack mentions more than once his astonishment that contactees were not more traumatized. The traumatic aspect has four dimensions. First are the experiences themselves. To be paralyzed and taken against one's will by strange beings into a foreign enclosure and subjected to intrusive R-like procedures, some of which are especially humiliating to human dignity, is obviously highly disturbing. In this light, it is surprising that abductees as a group are not more emotionally troubled than they are. John Mack, Abductions, page 44. Some biological events can occur in real time, as was the case with me, but not all. The biological procedure during the eighth contact event occurred to a bilocated astral body, while during the ninth contact event, the biological procedure was in timelessness, both of which produced no cellular memory to my everyday waking body. This is what I see in John Mack's reporting. To me, it's obvious that the entities are here to evolve us. I believe that when we take the time to understand how they are interacting with us, it expands our minds to what is possible in the universe, and in turn expands our knowledge of ourselves. And from my experience, they want us to have this knowledge, to show us, for us to understand, to evolve ourselves. So that's it. Bye, everybody. Bye for now.